Ready to explore the world of Vedic astrology. We've got some really fascinating excerpts from the Brihat Jataka,
Oh, yeah.
a text that's so foundational to this ancient Indian system. It's practically their astrological Bible.
You could say that, definitely.
The Brihat Jataka.
A must-read.
If you want to understand Vedic astrology, or Jyotish, as it's known in Sanskrit.
Exactly.
Jyotish. I like the sound of that already.
Hmm.
Now, I know Vedic astrology uses the planets at your birth to predict your life, but
Right.
what makes it so different from,
Okay.
say, Western astrology, the kind we're all more familiar with?
It's the complexity,
Yeah.
really. Western astrology focuses a lot on your sun sign, but Jyotish,
Mm.
it dives much deeper.
I see.
It looks at the moon, your rising sign,
Mm.
a whole host of other planetary influences to paint a much more nuanced picture.
And from what I'm seeing in these excerpts, it gets into some really specific stuff, like how the zodiac signs are depicted, what your birth star says about your personality, even predictions about your career, children,
Right.
and lifespan.
It does get into some intriguing details.
No,
We'll definitely explore those. But I think what's really valuable,
Okay.
how Jyotish encourages us to think about life's bigger questions.
Ooh, I like where this is going.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's start with the basics. How does the Brihat Jataka lay the foundation for Jyotish?
Right away, it introduces this concept of Kalapurusha,
Kalapurusha.
a cosmic being
Okay.
whose body acts as a blueprint for the zodiac.
Hmm.
Imagine a giant being,
Okay.
a cosmic being whose body is the blueprint for the zodiac signs, and each sign represents a different part of this being.
Okay.
Pretty cool, right?
Yeah, so we're not just talking about abstract symbols, but actual body parts.
Yeah.
That definitely helps me visualize it.
Yeah.
What makes it even more interesting is how the Brihat Jataka actually describes each sign.
Right.
The imagery is...
The imagery is incredibly vivid.
Oh, okay.
For example,
Give me an example.
Pisces is depicted as two fish swimming in opposite directions,
Okay.
which kind of hints at their tendency towards duality,
Reality.
being pulled between reality and fantasy.
So if I'm a Pisces, does that mean I'm destined to be indecisive?
Well, no, not necessarily.
Okay.
It's more about
Okay.
recognizing that duality within yourself.
Okay.
Jyotish doesn't say you're stuck with certain traits.
Mhm.
It's more like a roadmap showing you potential strengths and challenges.
Okay.
So for a Pisces, that duality
Right.
could mean you're naturally drawn to creative fields or spiritual exploration,
Mm.
but you might also need to work on finding a balance and making clear decisions.
Okay. I'm starting to see how this works. It's not about limitations,
Right?
but possibilities.
Yeah.
What about some of the other signs? What kind of imagery does the Brihat Jataka use for them?
Well, take Sagittarius.
Okay.
It's depicted as a centaur.
Half man, half horse.
Yes. Always aiming his arrow toward the heavens.
Right, and that captures that classic Sagittarian thirst for adventure, knowledge, and higher ideals.
Exactly.
So a Sagittarius might be drawn to travel, philosophy, or even teaching.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And then there's Virgo, represented by a virgin in a boat.
Okay.
Holding a crop and a light.
Wow, that's a lot packed into one image.
It is.
But it makes me wonder, how literally should we take these depictions?
It's more about understanding the underlying energy.
Okay.
Think of it like this. The Brihat Jataka uses this rich imagery to give us a deeper understanding of the signs. But it's up to us to interpret how those energies might play out in our own lives.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So we've got this cosmic being, the Kalapurusha,
Right.
and these beautifully detailed descriptions of the zodiac signs. But how do the planets themselves fit into all of this?
Here's where it gets even more interesting.
Okay.
In Vedic astrology, each planet isn't just a celestial body. It has a personality, a role,
Okay.
and even a gender.
I'm all ears.
Oh.
Give me some examples. Like, what's the sun's personality like?
The sun is like the king.
Okay.
It represents your soul, your ego, your core identity.
Hmm.
But just like any ruler,
Mm-hmm.
it can be prone to pride, arrogance, or anger.
So even people with a strong sun placement
Right.
are going to struggle with those things.
It's more about recognizing those tendencies within yourself.
Okay.
Jyotish helps us understand our strengths and weaknesses so we can navigate them consciously.
I see.
So someone with a prominent sun might be a natural leader,
Right.
but also need to watch their ego and cultivate humility.
Interesting. It's like having this insider knowledge about your own inner workings.
Exactly.
What about the moon? How does that planet's personality play out?
The moon governs the mind.
Hmm.
It's fluid, changeable, deeply emotional,
Right.
and ruled by the element of water.
Makes sense, considering how our emotions ebb and flow like the tides.
Exactly.
So someone with a strong moon placement might be extra sensitive, intuitive, or even creative.
Right. They might also experience emotional highs and lows more intensely.
Right. It's about recognizing those tendencies and learning how to work with them.
Exactly.
Okay, I'm getting the hang of this.
Good.
So each planet is like a character in our life story, bringing its own strengths and challenges.
Yeah.
What about Mars?
Mars?
What's its energy like?
It's the fiery warrior, full of energy and drive.
Oh, I see.
But this energy can be a double-edged sword,
Right.
potentially leading to impulsiveness, aggression, or conflict if not channeled constructively.
So someone with a strong Mars placement might be super competitive,
You might.
athletic, or even have a short fuse.
Possible.
But that Martian energy can also be harnessed for positive things.
Absolutely.
Like taking initiative, pursuing your passions, or standing up for what you believe in.
Right.
Okay, so it's not about labeling planets as good or bad. It's about understanding their energy and how it can manifest in our lives.
Exactly.
What about Mercury?
Mercury.
What kind of character does it bring to the table?
It's the communicator, the quick-witted trickster,
Okay.
governing intellect, and how we interact with the world.
Okay.
It rules things you might not expect.
Oh.
Like what?
Like our skin.
Skin.
Yeah.
That seems random.
It might seem that way, but
What does our skin have to do with communication?
think of it this way.
Okay.
Our skin is literally the boundary between our inner world
Right.
and the outer world.
Okay.
It's how we interact with our environment, how we express ourselves, and how we receive information from our surroundings.
Okay.
And that's essentially what Mercury is all about: communication and exchange.
Whoa, I never thought about it that way. So if Mercury is strong in my chart, could that mean I'm drawn to communication-heavy fields? Or maybe I just have a unique relationship with my physical appearance?
It could. It could. Jyotish is all about understanding those subtle connections and seeing how these planetary energies weave together to create the tapestry of our lives. Okay, we're starting to see how each planet has its own distinct character and how those personalities interact with our own.
Right.
But how do we know which planetary influences are strongest in our lives?
Right.
Is it just based on our sun sign?
It's way more nuanced than that. Remember, Vedic astrology looks at the positions of all the planets at the time of your birth.
Right.
It takes into account your moon sign, your rising sign, which is determined by the exact time you were born,
Oh.
and the houses these planets fall into. It's all about understanding the unique combination of energies in your individual birth chart.
So it's like each birth chart is a unique fingerprint showing the specific blend of planetary energies that were present at the moment we entered this world.
Exactly. And what's even more fascinating is that Jyotish doesn't just focus on our birth chart.
Right.
It also looks at how those planetary influences unfold throughout our lives.
So we're not just fixed in one state forever.
No.
These planetary influences actually change and evolve as we move through life.
That's right. And that's where the concept of dashas comes in.
Dashas.
Dasha.
What are those?
Planetary periods.
Okay.
Specific time frames in your life when certain planets have more influence than others. It's like each planet gets its turn in the driver's seat,
Okay.
bringing its unique energy and themes to the forefront.
So it's not just about my birth chart. It's also about how these planetary influences play out over time.
Right.
This is starting to feel like a cosmic soap opera with all these characters interacting and creating drama in our lives.
I like that analogy.
But the beauty of Jyotish is that it gives us a framework for understanding those twists and turns so we're not just caught off guard when they happen.
Right.
So by understanding these dashas, these planetary periods, we can actually anticipate the kind of energies that might be coming up in our lives. That's pretty cool, but how do we even know what those energies are? Like, what kind of themes are associated with each planet's dasha?
Well, that's a conversation for our next installment.
Okay.
We've covered a lot of ground today,
We have.
laying the foundation for understanding Jyotish
Right.
and how it views the zodiac signs and planets as these vibrant, dynamic characters in our life stories.
I'm already hooked.
Good.
This is way more than just checking your horoscope in the newspaper.
It is.
Jyotish is like a whole different way of understanding ourselves and the world around us.
It really is. And I think our listeners are going to be blown away by the insights we'll uncover as we dive deeper into the Brihat Jataka.
I can't wait.
Yeah.
See you next time for part 2.
Sounds good.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the Brihat Jataka.
Yeah.
Last time we were talking about these dashas, these
Yeah.
planetary periods that influence different parts of our lives.
Uh-huh.
Can you remind us how they work?
Sure.
It's like each planet gets its turn in the driver's seat of our lives.
That's a great way to think about it.
Right.
Each dasha represents a time when a particular planet's energy is more prominent, shaping our experiences and the themes that come up in our lives. It's like our birth chart sets the stage, but the dashas determine what kind of scenes play out at different points in our story.
Okay, so it's not like these planets were battling it out for control.
Right.
It's more like a cosmic relay race where each planet takes its turn influencing our lives.
Exactly.
But how long do these dashas last?
Well, the length of each dasha varies depending on the planet.
Okay.
Some can last for a few years, others for decades. And calculating your dashas is pretty complex.
Oh, really?
It's best done by an experienced Vedic astrologer who can analyze your birth chart.
So it's not something I can just figure out by Googling my sun sign.
Not quite, no. But even without calculating your exact dashas,
Right.
knowing about this concept can help you understand the ebb and flow of life's challenges and opportunities.
I see.
It's like if you're going through a rough patch, you might be in a Saturn dasha right now.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
It's like instead of blaming ourselves or feeling like we're failing, we can recognize that we might be going through a planetary period that's naturally bringing up those themes of limitation or discipline. Right, or hard work. Yeah, exactly. It's about understanding the bigger picture and using that knowledge to navigate our lives more consciously.
Okay, so knowing about dashas can help us put things into perspective and maybe even approach challenges with a little more grace.
Yeah.
But I'm dying to know what kinds of themes are associated with each planet's dasha.
Okay.
Like, what would it feel like to be in, say, a sun dasha versus a moon dasha?
Well, the sun's dasha is often a time of heightened vitality,
Okay.
leadership opportunities, and a focus on your core identity. It's a time for stepping into your power and pursuing your ambitions.
I see.
But just like the sun itself, it can also bring up themes of ego, pride,
Right.
and the potential for conflicts if that energy isn't managed wisely.
So it's like a time of great potential, but also potential pitfalls.
Exactly.
It's about harnessing that solar energy for good while being aware of its shadow side.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
What about the moon's dasha?
Okay.
What kind of vibe does that bring?
The moon's dasha is all about emotional depth, intuition, and creative expression.
Okay.
It's a time when your inner world comes to the forefront and you might feel more sensitive,
Right.
introspective, or even a bit moody.
So if I'm feeling extra emotional or having vivid dreams, that could be a sign I'm in a moon dasha.
It's possible.
Okay.
The moon's dasha amplifies our emotional sensitivity and can bring up subconscious patterns and memories.
Right.
It's like the tides of our emotions are running high during this time.
Okay, that's fascinating. So it's not just about the planets themselves,
Uh,
it's also about how those planetary energies interact with our own individual makeup.
right.
What about Mars?
Mars,
What
see-
kind of experiences might come up during a Mars dasha?
Mars dasha can be quite dynamic.
Okay.
A time for action,
Right.
assertiveness, and pursuing your goals with courage and determination.
Okay.
You might feel a surge of energy, a drive to compete, or even a bit more impatient than usual.
So if I suddenly feel the urge to take up kickboxing or quit my job to start my own business, that could be a Mars dasha talking.
It could be. It's that Martian energy urging you to take charge and make things happen.
Okay.
But just remember, Mars is a fiery planet, so it's important to channel that energy wisely
Right.
and avoid getting caught up in unnecessary conflicts.
Okay, good advice.
Yeah.
It's like use that Martian fire to fuel your passions, but don't let it burn you out or burn bridges with others.
It's about finding that balance between assertiveness and diplomacy,
Okay.
action and strategy.
So we've talked about the sun, the moon, and Mars.
Right.
What about Mercury?
Mercury.
What kind of themes might emerge during a Mercury dasha?
Mercury's dasha is a time for communication, learning,
Okay.
and mental agility. It's a favorable period for studying, writing, teaching, and engaging in anything that stimulates your intellect.
So if I suddenly feel the urge to learn a new language or write a novel, that could be a sign I'm in a Mercury dasha.
It could be.
Okay.
Mercury governs all forms of communication and mental activity. So it's a time when those things come naturally.
I see.
But Mercury can also be a bit of a trickster, so be mindful of scattering your energy or getting caught up in mental chatter.
Interesting. It's like Mercury's dasha gives us this mental boost.
Right.
But we need to make sure we're using that energy productively and not just spinning our wheels.
Exactly.
What about the other planets?
Yeah.
Do they have dashas too?
They do.
Okay.
Every planet has its own dasha period.
Right.
And each one brings a unique set of themes and experiences. For example, Jupiter's dasha is often associated with expansion, abundance, and good fortune.
Okay.
It's a favorable time for growth, travel, and spiritual exploration. Venus's dasha, on the other hand, is all about relationships, beauty, and pleasure. It's a time for cultivating harmony in your relationships.
Okay.
Enjoying the finer things in life and expressing your creativity.
Okay, so it's like each planet's dasha is a chance to tap into a different aspect of ourselves and experience life through a different lens.
Exactly.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But it also makes me wonder if these dashas bring up such specific themes.
Right.
Does that mean our lives are predetermined?
It's a great question.
Like, are we just at the mercy of these planetary cycles?
And it goes back to that age-old debate,
Right.
fate versus free will. Jyotish acknowledges the influence of these planetary cycles,
Okay.
but it also emphasizes the power of conscious choice.
Okay, so it's not just about passively accepting what the planets throw our way.
Right.
It's about using that knowledge to make informed choices and create the life we want.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes me feel a little less like a puppet of the cosmos.
Good.
So it's not just about passively accepting what the planets throw our way. It's about using that knowledge to make informed choices and create the life we want.
Exactly.
I like that.
Yeah.
It's like the planets are giving us clues, but it's up to us to decipher those clues and use them to our advantage.
That's a great way to put it.
And speaking of clues, the Brihat Jataka doesn't just give us general insights about planetary influences.
Right.
It also gets into some surprisingly specific predictions.
It does.
Oh, now you have my attention.
All right.
What kind of specific predictions are we talking about?
Well, remember how we were talking about planetary personalities earlier?
Yeah.
The Brihat Jataka takes that idea even further and links those personalities to specific professions.
Wait, seriously?
Yeah.
It can tell me what kind of job I should have based on the planets.
Well, it can give you some insights.
Give me some examples.
Okay, so let's say the sun is strong in your chart.
Okay.
This could indicate leadership qualities,
Right.
but it's also associated with things like teeth and claws.
Teeth and claws.
Yeah.
What kind of job involves teeth and claws? A dentist?
Maybe.
A lion tamer?
Possibly. It might be that literal, or it could reflect a more symbolic meaning.
Okay.
A job that requires assertiveness, a willingness to bite into challenges, maybe even a touch of ruthlessness.
Okay. I can see how that could apply to a lot of professions.
Right.
So it's not about taking those planetary associations literally.
Right.
It's about understanding the underlying energy and how it might manifest in different areas of our lives.
Exactly.
What about Jupiter?
Jupiter.
What kind of jobs is it linked to?
A strong Jupiter is often associated with professions like teaching, advising,
Right.
or spiritual guidance. It's also, interestingly enough, connected to minds.
Mines.
Minds.
Okay, that one's a head scratcher.
I know, but think about the underlying energy of Jupiter.
Okay.
Expansion, wealth, delving into the depths of knowledge.
Right.
Mining for precious metals or resources could be seen as a symbolic manifestation of that energy.
Whoa. I'm starting to see how this works. It's about understanding the essence of each planet
Right.
and how that essence might translate into different career paths.
Exactly.
What about Venus?
Venus.
Does a strong Venus just mean you'll be surrounded by beautiful things all day?
Venus is associated with art, beauty,
Right.
and pleasure.
Yeah.
So those things might be part of your work.
Okay.
But here's a curveball. It's also linked to wrestling.
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 Seriously? What does that even mean?
Don't underestimate Venus's competitive spirit. It's about using charm and strategy to win,
Okay.
which could apply to both the wrestling ring and the boardroom.
Interesting.
Think about professions where persuasion, negotiation, and maybe even a bit of showmanship are key.
Okay, this is blowing my mind. It's like these planetary connections are about more than just surface-level interpretations.
Right.
It's about understanding the deeper energy and how it might express itself in our work.
Exactly. It's about seeing those connections and using them to guide us towards fulfilling career paths.
So we've talked about careers. What other specific predictions does the Brihat Jataka offer?
Right.
You mentioned something about wealth.
Right. The text suggests that your birth chart can indicate how you might acquire wealth.
Okay.
Some are destined for inheritance,
Right.
others for self-made success, and some achieve abundance through unexpected means.
So if I'm meant to be rich, it's written in the stars.
Well, it's more accurate to say that certain planetary positions create a potential for great wealth,
Okay.
but whether that potential is realized depends on a lot of factors,
Okay.
including your actions and choices.
So it's not a guarantee, but more like a roadmap showing different paths to abundance.
Exactly.
What about something even more fundamental?
Yeah.
Where we live?
Right.
Does the Brihat Jataka say anything about that?
You bet.
Okay.
Vedic astrology gets incredibly specific.
Really?
It can even pinpoint your likely birthplace, or even where in a house you might give birth.
Whoa. That's crazy.
It is.
Give me some examples.
Okay, for instance, strong watery signs and a prominent moon in your chart suggest a connection to water,
Okay.
perhaps even being born near a body of water.
So if I was born on a coast or near a lake, that could be reflected in my chart.
It's possible.
Okay.
And if Saturn has a strong influence, it might indicate a birth that occurs in darkness or in a secluded location.
Okay. So my birth time A and D location could be tied to my planetary placements.
Yeah.
That's pretty wild.
It is.
But this is making me think.
Okay.
If Jyotish can get this specific, does that mean it's also making predictions about challenging things in our lives?
Right.
Like illness or even death?
That's a great question. And it's something we'll explore in the next part of our deep dive.
Okay.
The Brihat Jataka doesn't shy away from those tougher topics,
Okay.
but it approaches them in a way that's meant to empower,
Right.
not frighten.
Okay. I'm both intrigued and a little apprehensive, but I'm definitely ready to dive deeper into those topics in our next segment.
Sounds good.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the Brihat Jataka. I have to admit, I'm a little nervous about this part.
Okay.
Last time you hinted that this text doesn't shy away from topics like illness and even death.
Right.
That's pretty heavy stuff.
It's true, the Brihat Jataka doesn't sugarcoat things.
Right.
But I think it's important to remember that this ancient text
Okay.
is approaching these topics
Right.
from a different perspective than we might today.
So it's not about fear-mongering or trying to predict someone's doom.
Not at all.
Okay.
I think it's more about
Okay.
understanding the full spectrum of human experience, including the challenging parts.
Right. And remember,
And in
Jyotish,
yeah,
challenges are often seen as opportunities for growth and transformation.
absolutely.
Okay, that's a helpful way to frame it.
Yeah.
So how does the Brihat Jataka actually address these topics of illness and death?
Well, it links
Okay.
specific planetary placements and combinations
Right.
to potential health challenges. For example, the 8th house in your chart
Oh, okay.
is often associated with longevity and also with potential vulnerabilities.
So if I have a lot of difficult placements in my 8th house,
Yeah.
does that mean I'm destined for a short life or lots of health problems?
It's not that straightforward.
Okay.
Remember, Jyotish is about understanding potential, not destiny.
Okay.
A challenging 8th house might suggest a need for extra care in certain areas of health,
Okay.
but it doesn't mean you're powerless.
So it's more like a heads up,
Yeah.
a chance to be proactive about my well-being.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's about using that knowledge to make informed choices
Yeah.
about your lifestyle, diet, and even the kind of medical care you seek.
That makes sense. It's like instead of freaking out about a difficult planetary placement,
Right.
I can use that information to take better care of myself,
That's the spirit.
right?
Knowledge is power, especially when it comes to our health. And what's interesting is that the Brihat Jataka also offers remedies.
Remedies.
Yeah.
Like what kind of remedies?
These remedies can range from simple lifestyle changes like adopting a healthier diet
Okay.
or incorporating specific herbs into your routine to more spiritual practices
Like what?
like chanting mantras or performing certain rituals.
So it's not just about reading your chart and accepting whatever it says.
Right.
It's about taking action to shift the energy
Exactly.
and create a more positive outcome.
It's about working with the system, not against it.
Okay, I'm really starting to see the empowerment aspect of Jyotish,
Okay.
but I'm still curious about how the Brihat Jataka handles the topic of death.
Right.
That's something that most people would rather not think about.
It is a sensitive subject,
Right.
but the Brihat Jataka approaches it with a blend of specificity and symbolism.
Okay.
It links certain planetary combinations to the potential manner of death and even the location where it might occur.
Wait, so it's literally predicting how and where we're going to die?
Well, remember, these are ancient interpretations.
Right.
And modern astrologers might approach them differently. Some might focus on the symbolic meaning,
Right.
while others might see them as potential warnings to be heeded.
So even when it comes to death, there's room for interpretation.
Absolutely. And I think it's important to remember that death is a natural part of life.
Right.
The Brihat Jataka might be trying to demystify it, to help people approach it with more awareness and acceptance.
That's an interesting perspective. It's like instead of fearing death, we can use these astrological insights to make peace with it.
Right.
To understand it as a transition rather than an ending.
Exactly. And for some, knowing these things, even if they're difficult to process, can provide a sense of peace or even empowerment. It's about facing life's realities with courage and awareness.
Okay, so we've talked about illness and death.
We have.
Pretty heavy stuff. But before we wrap up our deep dive into the Brihat Jataka, I have one more question that's been bugging me.
Okay, what is it?
Well, throughout this whole discussion, we've been talking about the planets as if they're these conscious beings with personalities and agendas. But I have to ask, is that literally how it works?
It's a great question.
Are the planets actually influencing us directly? Or is it more symbolic? Like the planets are just reflections of the energies within us?
That's a profound question.
Yeah.
And there's no easy answer.
Okay.
Different astrologers hold different beliefs on this.
So some believe it's a literal influence while others see it as more symbolic.
Exactly.
Okay.
Some believe that the planets emit subtle energies that directly impact our physical and psychological states.
Right.
Others see them as archetypal symbols that represent universal forces at play within us.
Okay, so it's up to each individual to decide what resonates with them.
Exactly. And what's fascinating is that both perspectives can be valid and insightful. Whether you see the planets as literal influencers or symbolic representations, they can offer valuable guidance on your life journey.
I like that. It's like it doesn't really matter whether you believe in the magic or not. The system can still work.
Well said.
Right.
Whether it's magic or simply a profound understanding of the interconnectedness of all things, Vedic astrology offers a rich and complex framework for understanding ourselves and the world around us.
Okay, so we're back to that idea of interconnectedness. It's like everything is linked, the planets, ourselves, the universe, it's all part of this grand cosmic dance.
Beautifully put.
Right.
And that sense of interconnectedness is what I find most compelling about Vedic astrology. It reminds us that we're not isolated individuals, but part of a vast and intricate web of energy and relationship.
It's like we're all in this together, guided by the same cosmic forces.
Exactly.
Right, and that realization can be both humbling and inspiring.
Yes.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive.
I agree.
We've explored the foundations of Jyotish, the personalities of the planets, these fascinating dashas, and even those tougher topics like illness and death.
We did.
I have to say, I've learned a ton.
Good.
And I'm starting to see why so many people are drawn to Vedic astrology.
It's an incredibly rich and insightful system.
It is.
And remember,
Right.
we've only just scratched the surface of what the Brihat Jataka has to offer.
That's both exciting and a little overwhelming.
It is.
I feel like I need to go back and reread these excerpts with fresh eyes.
Yeah.
Now that I have a better understanding of the basics.
I encourage you to do that. And I think our listeners will find the same.
Yeah.
The more you explore Jyotish,
Yeah.
the more you'll uncover it's a lifelong journey of discovery.
Well said.
Yeah.
So to our listeners, we hope this deep dive has sparked your curiosity about Vedic astrology.
I hope so.
If you're intrigued, we encourage you to keep exploring, keep learning, and see what insights this ancient system has to offer you.
And remember, Jyotish is ultimately about self-knowledge and empowerment.
Right.
It's about understanding the energies at play in your life, so you can navigate them consciously and create a life that's aligned with your highest potential.
Beautifully put. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the Brihat Jataka. Until next time, happy stargazing.
Thanks for having me.